In stats, we started experimental design, and here are some terms that we need to be aware of. Most of you have heard these things before. Any study is either an observation or an experiment, and the definition for experiment really clears things up. Are there treatments present? Has anything been manipulated? Have things changed? Is there an explanatory variable and then a response? Those are the questions, but the key is, are there treatments given to subjects? Confounding, that's when there's an extraneous variable not of interest. That possibly has an effect on the response. So there are always other variables out there in the room, in your experiment, whatever it is you're conducting. There are always potential variables that could change things, change outcomes. And so if you do an experiment and you don't control for these extraneous variables, then the experiment becomes confounded. So it starts out as being a potential problem, and then it becomes a problem if it's not handled, if it's not controlled. Treatment, this is what is given to the individuals or objects. Some kind of condition applied. So this is a pretty generic definition here, but some kind of condition that you give. Experimental unit, this is treatments are given to the subjects. And subjects is another way of identifying experimental unit, which is typed there, but I mean, you can add the word subject to this if you want. All right. So explanatory variable, we think there is some variable that exists that is making some kind of response occur. So maybe I think this medicine is lowering cholesterol. So I think the medicine is the explanatory variable and the response is cholesterol level, something like that. We'll practice that. So on this first problem, let's break it down. We have the study in North Carolina. Can't quite get the entire thing. So we'll read it for a second and then scroll down, maybe hit pause and skim it. All right. They are concerned about dropout rate for students in North Carolina. So they are going to try out this new kind of curriculum, this career start right here. And this first paragraph is just talking about it. So they recruited 14 middle schools in Forsyth County. 7 of the schools are going to receive a career start, and 7 of them will get the basic standard curriculum. So they're going to, at the very end, write down attendance all the way to graduation. All right? So I would say our experimental units, there was some discussion about this during class about what classifies as an experimental unit. But I would say this is any subject in the study that received something. So in this case, the 14 middle schools in Forsyth County. Some were asking if the 7 that received the standard curriculum, these guys right here, if they're part of the experimental units, and I would say yes. The treatment group are the 7 that received Career Start, and then the 7 that received the standard curriculum, that's the control group. So that's breaking it down further. But just the experimental units, this is asking who is in the study that received anything. Subjects that were given, so you don't have to write this, by the way, or told something. All right? But the answer, I would say, is middle schools in Forsyth County. You can actually get away with not writing the 14, but I think it's important to write it. Explanatory variable, this is type of curriculum used. You could describe that in many different ways. What the middle schools used to teach kids. What did the middle schools, I don't know how else to say it, study, something like that. Response variable, this is what was written down after the study. So this is a bunch of things. It was attendance, behavior, standardized test scores, engagement, and whether they graduated from high school. Treatments. So many people have a hard time with this. They're just wanting you to list what was given to the middle schools. So many times it's a new treatment and a control, like nothing has changed. But you still need to list that as what the other group used. So yes, I realize that the standard curriculum isn't necessarily a treatment. It's just a control. They kept on doing what they had been doing, but yet they were still told that. So that still is listed among the treatments. So here I would say Career Start, and standard curriculum. I think you got to approach it from the other direction. Like if we don't list that right there, like if I just write Career Start, then there's a question when someone's reading this. Did you understand this as everyone received Career Start? And that would be wrong. Like half the group received standard curriculum, half the group received Career Start. Technically, I think these guys got the standard curriculum as well. I think that's up there. Yeah, it's in there. So like this is one group and this is another group. So think of this treatments line as what did people receive? What did the middle schools receive? All right. So moving on, we took it a little further. We looked at a more complex experiment. Let me zoom out a little bit. So this was TV advertising, and you see right above it that sometimes an explanatory variable can have multiple factors, multiple treatments given at different levels. So maybe hit pause and skim through it. And hopefully you see that the experimental units, the people that entered the study, were the 120 undergraduate students. And for explanatory variable, I didn't say it a second ago, but this is just a general description of what the treatments are. So in this case, we're talking about ads that advertisements that the students saw, the commercials. So let's say length and repetition of commercials, of advertisement. All right. Response variable, they write it down starting right here all the way to here. So we need to write those three things. Recall, attitude, and intent to purchase this camera. Treatments, we had two different types of treatments and they had multiple levels. So one of the treatments was length of ad, length of commercial. And the other was repetition. Whoops. So they saw it either once, 3 times, or 5 times, and the length was either 30 seconds or 90 seconds. Now that's not quite enough because you need someone to be able to read this and see what occurred. So at this point, you need to write down the individual treatments. Some of these students saw the commercial for 30 seconds once, 30 seconds 3 times, or 30 seconds 5 times. Some of the students saw it 90 seconds once, or they saw it for 90 seconds 3 times, or lastly, 90 seconds 5 times. So I would write my answer just like that. That way it's very clear. I mean, arguably you could get away with skipping this, but you do need to identify what the first number resembles and the second number resembles. But 6 treatments. All right, last thing we looked at was this confounded example. So hit pause and read through that. Now, a way to kind of cheat in answering this question is if you look right below it, right here. So I don't know, should I have typed those above this problem, below? I don't know. I was curious if you guys could figure it out without me typing that. So I would say those 4 things must be present in some form in an experiment. And so they are trying to prove that this online version of studying for the SAT is best because it's supposed to give an increase in their math score, right? So this group, they took this online course and they had an increase of 45. So it increased scores on average. Sounds good. But I have many questions here. And right away, comparison is the big one. Now, there are many other problems. Did students self-select to be in this program, kind of like a lot of schools where students choose their own schedule? Were there any other controls? Were students studying on their own? And how large is the sample size? All 4 of those things, we have question marks here. But I think the number one problem is, why are we saying online is better if it hasn't been compared to anything else? the standard way. I don't know, some book study guide, just self-study. So let's elaborate on those other three things, but the first thing I mentioned is the most important. But these are all good answers. Did students study on their own? Let's change this. Did only ambitious Sorry, screen kind of froze there. Did only ambitious students sign up? In other words, not random. So lastly, can we conclude? No. And I would say because of all those reasons there. Cannot conclude effective. Too many confounding variables that I mentioned right above there. All right, I'll see y'all later. Bye.